Hello and welcome to Plot Twist. I am your host, Eliana Pires Janssen, and boy, do I have a fascinating episode for y'all today. Not something that was on my creativity bingo card per se, but man, oh man, I learned so much, and I hope you do too. Today, we are going to be diving into a truly sensory experience, unlike any other, and we will be exploring this amazing intersection of art, science, the human experience, but all with a unique twist. It all has to do with the world of scent and olfactory. Joining us is Dougherty, a pioneering scent artist and researcher who is transforming the way that we interact with scents. I learn all these different facts. I had my mind blown. Like, for instance, do you know that our olfactory receptors were only discovered in 1991, a date that you would think would have been like 100 years ago? So this is this new frontier of learning about the human body and how it interacts with our brains, our culture, our moods, just how it is so intertwined in our lives, and we don't even know it really. So sit back, relax, and get ready to have your mind and nose blown by this episode. I'm super excited to bring it to you. So without further ado, here it is. Hi, everybody. I'm Eliana Pires Janssen. Sorry for the nasally voice. We got a little head cold going on here, but welcome to the second episode of Plot Twist, where we meet awesome individuals who have taken a plot twist in their life and arrived at an awesome destination. My guest today is Dougherty. They are my oldest, probably high school friend, actually. I think, when you do the math, but we haven't really seen each other in 10 years because life is crazy and we both had some plot twists. So, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us what you're about, and then we'll dive into it and finish with what is your favorite color?
Ooh, okay, cool. So I got distracted by the question. Yeah, so everything you said is accurate. um, so I am a scent artist and researcher, so that's kind of where the twist of my life has resulted. I started in sculpture, and then I went into film and installation art, and just through aggressive curiosity have ended up um, working with scent in art. And that's not just perfumery. I do scent for the body, but it's also like sculpture and gallery installations that involve scent in any way. And I'm starting to explore the research side of that too, because there's still so much we don't know, and I'm infinitely curious about it. Yeah. My favorite color is chartreuse, 1000% chartreuse.
Well played.
To the point
Well
where my
played.
closet is black, white, and chartreuse, and my dog is also black and his harness is chartreuse. So all the time we look like we're matching.
Perfection. It is pure perfection. And one thing that we are going to dive into is your installation show that you did around the sensory with dogs, because that was so cool. But
I highly recommend making art for dogs for anyone. The best audience.
is there anything better? I mean, art, dogs, I see no downside. So your thing that is we're gonna just jump right into the scent organ, because that to me is the most fascinating, immersive, creative thing that I've ever seen in my life, and it is the coolest thing. And tell me, first of all, tell listeners what it is, and then tell me about your process of what led there. Yeah.
Hello, listeners. So what it is is it's basically a piano, but instead of playing sound, you play different scent molecules or materials. So I should be very explicitly clear that I did not invent the idea of the synesthesia between scent and music, and this device has been theorized since the 1800s. And different people have talked about it, drawn different diagrams for it, but only a few have really made it since. And I wanted to explore if it was more portable and being used by not just perfumers or musicians, what would come about. So yeah, I've iterated on it 5 times now. It's constantly evolving, which is kind of cool. based on like how it goes and how people respond to it and what feels clear or not. So now I have it in a form where I worked with some other perfumers, George Tedder specifically, to like make sure that each keys, like what in combination makes the most accords, basically. So if you like play these three keys, it'll be fig, and if you play these, it'll be chai. So right now it's like 15 different keys, and there's like 20 different accords that it makes. But there's like, I mean, there's infinite combinations there. So yeah.
So when you were developing it, where were you? Because you've done a lot of residencies, you've done research residencies, you've also done plenty of talks, and also I thought, and you spent time in Germany, correct?
No, I
No.
mean, I was supposed to.
Oh, fair. That's right. That's right.
COVID.
Yep. Son of a
Big
bitch.
COVID. Yeah. So really ruins
But where
travel
were
plans.
you when you were developing the actual like hands-on
Yeah,
process of making it happen?
it was part of my master's at NYU actually. So I that was the program I was supposed to be partially in Shanghai and New York and in Berlin for. It's like a interactive media program, but everyone comes to it from different fields, and it's all about using technology in new ways. So everyone's exploring different things, and we're collaborating across the world. Like half of my class I still haven't met because they're in China. But yeah, I was in New York and decided to explore it for my thesis project there. And the first version of it used water diffusers. So instead of like right now, it's all air based and using like physical pumps and things. But originally, it was like a bunch of hacked together diffusers basically that like had little steam coming off of them. So it
Yes.
felt a little bit like, you know, a haunted house kind of vibe. And I wasn't as specific with the materials. So I think at that point there was only 7 diffusers, so it was a lot smaller of a scale. Yeah.
So why scent? What drove that specific? Because obviously we, like I mentioned, we were high school best friends. We were always in the creative realm in general. How did you arrive in this like beautiful marriage of scent and creativity?
Yeah, there's like a long version and a short version. Short version is I happened to be in the right place at the right time and ask the right questions, right? So I was in Los Angeles, I was burnt out, and in Los Angeles there's the Institute for Art and Olfaction, where a really wonderful person, Saskia Wilson Brown, started it to make working with scent more accessible. Right now, like before, you would have to have like a degree in chemistry, or you would have to do an unpaid apprenticeship for like years and years and years to be able to practice perfumery, right? So like the number of people that could do it was like a very small window,
especially
right?
in the economy today.
Hello.
Yeah.
So she just wanted more voices to not be lost, right? Because only certain people were practicing. So she opened up the institute, offers different classes, but also has a whole library of materials that you can come in and work with in like these open sessions. So I went there. I was like talking to the people around me because something about me is I'm gonna ask questions no matter what. If I have a question, I will ask. So I was kind of harassing everyone around me, and someone was there tinkering away, and I asked them what they were working on. And they said they were trying to recreate the smell of hot Cheetos, which kind of blew my mind because at that point I had only really thought of scent materials as like essential oils and like naturals, and I like couldn't comprehend how you would even approach making something that doesn't exist in nature on its own. Like, how do you do that? So it kind of like blew my mind that, and I was like, oh, you can make the smell of anything. It doesn't have to grow on a tree. It doesn't have to even physically exist. It doesn't, it, you know, it can be all theoretical. And I started, I was doing performance art more at the time, and I started just like weaving it in and like thinking with the art I was already doing, if you approached it and like you were blind or didn't have access to one of your senses, could you still get the same messaging through another one? Like, could I have everything I was trying to say exist in the scent alone? And like just gradually over time, like I said, I kept getting more curious and asking more questions. And the truth is, we don't really know as much about our sense of smell. Like, it's still pretty new science. And like we only discovered olfactory receptors in 1991. That's literally
Wait,
the earth.
what?
So that's like not
Wait.
that long ago. Yeah. We don't know anything. We just don't know anything.
That's an awkward date that I thought was going to be at least 100 years before that.
I mean, which is like exciting because it's like a time where we're like discovering more about it. And you know, we mentioned COVID before. I'm so sorry.
It is okay.
I literally put everything on silent. I'm so sorry.
Those emergency bypass people sneak right in. That's why I had to, on film sets, I had to nix the emergency bypass. And when I told my husband, I was like, sorry, bro, but I'm not going to ruin a take with your text. I can't, it can't be done. Can't be done. But
it's not even important, which is the more annoying part. Okay.
Should we shame them and just like read the text message?
Roll my eyes.
But no, going back to your journey and discovering in 1991 your world and whatnot.
Yeah. So also I should mention that Linda Buck and Richard Axel were the people that discovered olfactory receptors, won a Nobel Prize. We love a female winning a Nobel Prize. Hello.
Let's go.
Super cool. But yeah, basically, so all these questions come up, like why memory is so crazily tied to scent. Like you'll smell something and be completely transported to that time in your life in such a vivid, visceral way. We don't fully understand like the neural pathways. We don't know. There's like 3 prominent theories about how we even smell and how that gets processed information in our brain. We haven't like nailed which one it is yet. Yeah. So there's been like so many questions that have come up that I don't have the answer for, right? And so it kind of keeps me interested. And I've always had this, like, not always, I've kind of made this promise with myself that like, no matter what it is, if I'm curious about it, I'll follow it fully. And that kept me moving through a bunch of different things pretty quickly. But I've stayed with scent just because I'm still so interested and it involves so many different skills and there's always room to grow and learn and everything. So I haven't left, but maybe tomorrow I will.
That's always maybe tomorrow.
Yeah, not today, but maybe tomorrow.
Do you enjoy, just because, and I have a similar brain, it's like you give me a topic, I'll research the hell out of it, like, and I'll go, like, I'm just that person because the curiosity takes over. But do you find yourself more fulfilled in research or creating the exhibits and the installations and whatnot?
I think that's the coolest part, is it's both, right? And working with scent makes me practice in a way that's not natural because your nose adapts to things around you pretty quickly. So if you're in a room with smells, your nose kind of turns off after an hour or two. So I can only mix for a little bit. So I have to take pauses where I'm not physically making. And that's when I like reflect and do more research and, you know, planning, etc. And then I can physically go back into making in a way where like any other work I've done is really like there's a planning process and then there's a making process and then I make the thing happen and it happens. This is so much more intertwined, and scent itself is like chemistry and neuroscience and psychology and all of these different things. And it's poetic, right? It's so subjective. So it really blends the logical and emotional in a way, and like the practical with the practice in a way that I really love, but it also feels like really unique to this. So I get fulfilled in that it's both, and it like makes me do both when it wants to, right? Like I could want to mix all day. That's nice thought. It's not gonna happen
though. Yeah. But it's also kind of cool because it has this like weird built-in, especially when I think today in general across the board, burnout is very, very prevalent in a lot of different creative industries. And so it kind of has a built-in mental health break check so that you're not like, you know, wearing yourself out and just, you know, as much of like sometimes when that creativity strikes and, you know, I branded this podcast in like a couple of days when you just go. Now I have a head cold. So, you know, it like, it's kind of cool that it has this beautiful built in, like, hey, you know, me talking as your nose, like, let's chill for a second. Like, I need a second to recalibrate. Now, something that's really interesting to me that I was reading through in your work is the use of like scent in culture and kind of just how it has been intertwined in many different cultures across the globe in such a significant but different way.
Yeah.
What question that might not even be a question, and so you can answer it freely, but like, what culture do you find has the most respect for scent and the emotions connected to scent and kind of understand it or understood it if it is a prior culture? Who do you think had it most dialed in?
I mean, the thing about it is every human has a different relationship to scent. So every culture does too. I think my gut is like inclined to say that indigenous communities do, one, because they have more words for scent. Like we don't even have we don't have a universal language for scent to begin with. Like if I say something smells like one thing, it might mean something different to you. So there's a lot more words there. There's also just like a connection to the earth in a way, and to like information and paying attention to the information that's like being expressed by nature in a way that we don't. I mean, I say we as like,
but like in
speaking
most
from
generally,
the like white American population, right?
Yes.
But the truth of it is, we all have the ability to hear that information. It's just a matter of attention. And I'm also saying this obviously as an outsider to that community, but that's just like my perceptual understanding. I think every culture does have their own relationship to it though, and things like religion and ritual and food and even like, you know, post the Industrial Revolution, a space is going to smell completely different, right? I think so it's also like the environment changes the smell of things, and then culture kind of responds. I don't know if
that's
there's fair. Like one person that's like did it, but
like nailed it, got it, check.
I know everything about
moving on. So
I'd love to meet them.
My question too, let's dive into the scent and the memory, because I feel like every single person has experienced it, and no one, you know, when you have those memories, like I think everybody has walked past somebody and they happen to be wearing the perfume of so and so from 10 years ago, and or even if you don't know where it's from. Like my daughter had her hip surgery, and there's like a little scar cream that I put on, and it is a smell, and I have no idea where it is from, but I know it from like shot or something else. It's been driving me crazy for the past couple of months, and I'm like put it on my finger, hold up to everybody. I'm like, what does this smell like to you? Does it smell like anything? And everyone's like, no, are you crazy? Like, I'm just like, no, please, I swear. I asked my mom, my aunt, because I was like, okay, maybe it's a childhood. And I'm just like, please smell this. Like, they're like,
I mean, what's crazy though is she's gonna have that experience at some point in her life too, right? Where like, because it's such a vivid part of her life right now, I'm sure, and yours right now, that like when she's your age and smells it again, it's gonna be like, why do I know this?
And then I'm gonna be like, oh, guess what? I tried. I
did my best.
Oh gosh.
It's such a real thing. I remember when I first moved to New York, and I didn't know where, like, how to get around as well. So I took a cab, and the cab driver was wearing like the perfume of like someone that I used to date, and I just was like in the backseat crying for no reason.
See, but that's what I'm saying. It is such an overwhelming Like,
Yeah.
and it's instant. It's just like
Yeah, it's
you
like
get
it's
that
not that like,
one
oh, I'm
whiff.
thinking about it. It's
Yeah.
I'm physically there. I'm like
And
in this room, in this space with these people.
yes.
Like, yeah.
And the even in the I guess the science behind how quickly that fires. Because I mean, even when you stub your toe, you can still see yourself stub your toe, and then the pain comes. But you smell something, and you instantly know that from
Yeah.
somewhere. Like that reaction time. Talk about kind of like the brain. I
Yeah.
know you were saying that we don't know a lot of information, so that's fun to talk
Yeah, I can
about
do my
when
best.
right, but for us newbies who have absolutely no idea, kind of talk us through that connection between brain and nose.
Totally. Okay, so scent itself is like molecules in the air. So basically, it's like evaporation happening. So first, it needs to get to your nose, and there's like a ton of factors in that. First, once it gets to your nose, there's things called olfactory receptors that, in pattern, the molecules bind to. Then I'm giving a very summed up version with
Yes,
none
that's
of
perfect
the like.
for people
Some
like
people
me
think
who
this
have
and others.
yes. Spoiler or not even disclaimer. These are for this is for people like me who have no idea about anything. So
Totally. And my brain, I'm like actively trying to filter that out. So excuse me for pausing. But yeah, essentially it reaches the nose, interacts with the olfactory receptors, and then passes through neurons in a bunch of different parts of your brain, right? So it's not like it's just touching one and then you're like comprehending it, shifting it. It's touching a lot. So it touches parts of your brain responsible for emotional regulation. That's why it's like really tied into emotion. There's long-term memory there. I think there's also I don't think. I mean, there's like the conscious response to smell where you're like, I identify that thing, it's this thing, the end. But there's also like the subconscious response to smell where it can be very physical. My favorite example is every time we have an emotion, we release different chemicals from our armpits. Which like, okay, we're just gonna like body odor's fine.
Let's go.
There's
Let's
nothing
go.
weird about it.
I've been
We
through
all
pregnancy. Yeah, I've been through
like,
pregnancy.
let's just get
Shit
over
ain't
that.
weird no more. Nothing's weird
It's
that the
not
body
weird.
does.
It's super cool.
Yes.
Yeah, armpit hair is really just to diffuse, actually. That's why it's there. It's not to keep us warm, obviously.
Fair. Can you imagine, though?
This is it. Survival, baby.
Let's go.
But yeah, every time we have an emotion, we'll release a different chemical. And it's to signal other humans what's going on. So when you're afraid, you'll have a certain chemical. That's why, like, if you're standing near stressed out people, you'll also have a physical reaction. A really cool artist named Sissel Tolas, who's like one of my idols, she did a piece where she comes from biochemistry. So she did a research piece where she had a bunch of people with phobias and she measured their odor, where you can kind of do a reading of what chemicals are present in something. So she did that of their body odor and then showed them a picture of the thing they're afraid of and measured their body odor again and saw what was different. She then kind of like equated the materials that presented afterwards with like fear. She then like painted gallery walls with it so you could scratch and sniff the walls and smell fear. Fascinating.
Wow.
And everyone has a different response because it's not something that you like consciously smell necessarily, but you'll feel something. Wow. So there's like the physical response, there's the working through response where you're trying to identify something, whether it's from a memory, whether it's from like just repetition. Yeah. And I think what's interesting, I talked about how like we don't have a universal language for smell, right? It's so different and subjective. But when we try to process smell, it doesn't go through the part of the brain that is responsible for language processing. So it's completely disjointed. Which is interesting. Welcome back.
I'm back.
Oh, so quick to go.
Actually, hold on. Technical difficulties. Pause.
Pause. All right, everyone home. We're pausing for a quick commercial break. It's brought to you by Riley. Little Riley Beans, DJ audio extraordinaire. I just did a commercial from Riley. Sorry.
Yes, yes. There you go. See, there it is. There it is. Perfect. We're gonna put in a little like perfect little clip of Riley like DJ.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's phenomenal. But yeah. So picking back up, so I think I actually like texted you when I'm just like, I swear to God, I smell different when, you know, I was breastfeeding, or like I smell like her, like we match smells. Like, and it was really weird. And even my husband noticed it. And I thought I was going nuts. And then I remember I just like texted you and you're like, no, that's normal. And I'm like, I have questions, but okay, I'm glad it's normal.
I also have talked to people about this scent because I'm going to be who I'm going to be, and I'm going to ask a question. So after you talk to me, like, I know, you will, if you start dating someone and living with someone, your body odor adjusts and you both match each other in a way. So your body odors will shift. I know someone who is convinced that her right armpit is now her partner's, but her left armpit is hers, and the inverse for her partner.
Dude, I buy that. 100% buy that, because I swear to God.
It's so interesting. Our body odor scent, like the scent of our body, is completely affected by so many different things. I said, like, emotions for sure, our diet for sure, but also hormones. So it makes sense when like moments in your life, or like when your body's changing and your hormones are changing, it's gonna change, right? And things like, like the oxytocin produced from love and all of that, of course, is going to change your body chemistry. So perhaps that's why. I also think of it like when people's cycles
keep going.
Okay. I think about it when like people's cycles kind of sync up. It's a similar thing with like hormone practices and like the chemical signaling. So I think it's just another example of that.
How would one even begin to like test to get like the nuts and bolts of why stuff like that happens? Like, what kind of testing would you have? Because like you can't capture scents and rate of change effectively, can you?
Not from a doctor.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. The same way you do hormone testing, of course. If your hormones are changing, your body odor is changing, period. We don't really.
Technology is just not. The technology hasn't just met. Yeah. And is that exciting to be part of something that hasn't fully been like?
Oh my God, yeah. It feels like, it's like the final frontier. I feel like, like very astronauts kind of vibes. Andreas Mershon, one of my mentors and someone who I've like worked with on machine olfaction conferences, he terms it osmonauts. We're exploring the whole alien planet basically through our noses.
That's amazing. So you've worked with wearable technologies that kind of help people's relationship to scent. Talk about a project that kind of gets there, and like what you're thinking, how technology can enhance or make it worse, or where do you think technology fits in with this particular like sector?
I have lots of things to say. So there's so much information held in scent, and we just don't pay attention to it. When I was very stressed during my master's, I started to like read this book, Being a Dog. And it's all about dogs' relationship to scent in the world. And
they have one of the best, right?
Yeah, I think their noses are 10,000 times better than ours. And we see through our eyes, right? Like I recognize someone from their face before I get close to them. Like I don't need to smell them to know it's who they are. But dogs completely see their whole world through their noses. In the book, she talked about how I'm sure you've experienced this with your dogs where they kind of have a sense of when you're coming home, right? And they like almost get like anxious or something right beforehand or get activated. And she proposes that it's because they've gotten used to like, okay, your smell is filling the house when you leave, and then it slowly goes away and goes away. And when it's at like this dilution level, when it's like this faint, that's about when they come home. And that's kind of how they tell time, right? So I kind of like,
That's so cool.
Isn't it like
that's so fascinating.
Yeah.
Like what never would have even
it's so beautiful too, right? It's not a clock, it's not a number.
Yeah.
It's like like when the home smells like this, that's when they come home.
And that makes so much sense. They smell everything, every dog, every butt, every fire hydrant,
they know when you're sick. I'm sure they knew when you were pregnant. All of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
They smell every change. My dog smells my breath every morning. And I know it's like him doing like a health check of like, how are we today kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I started doing like speculative design. So like thinking about like, okay, if I wanted to create some kind of system so that humans related to time through smell, what would that look like? And I kind of like, what are those like little, the like, is it a sand that goes hourglass? That's the word.
Hourglass. Sand boys, as I call them.
Where there's sand and you turn it and there's less sand.
Those things, I think, back in the day.
Yeah, but yeah, basically, so like, could I create like an hourglass for scent, right? So if you like sprayed something at the beginning, scent is constantly evaporating, right? So that's part of it. So could it then gauge when the scent has dissipated? I call it speculative because I didn't like make the thing fully functional or like into a final product or project or whatever. But more like proof of concept, more like attempting to play with that idea. But I've like thought about others, like different wearable devices, right, that people could have more dog-like relationship to smell, or just, and that just to me I take as like amplifying the information that's already happening in smell, but in a way that like is easier to pay attention or easier to tune into or is louder.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What's something that's on in this world that has just, it could be a fine, it could be, anything, but something in this world that has happened recently that has excited you? And I mean, obviously there's a lot because it's a new thing, but like, what's the hot goss of the scent world right now? Like, what's the thing?
Okay, the big thing right now is AI is like evolving pretty rapidly, right?
Yes.
I keep talking about the language of scent, right? We don't have this way of communicating it. And a nice like parallel is with color, right? Before the RGB system, it was just descriptive. It was like swatches. But with the RGB system, it became three numbers, so not linguistic based. I can send it to another person, they can understand and then recreate it. So with scent, like that's three factors, right? RGB. With scent, we don't even know how many factors are involved. Like there's evaporation, temperature, all of the things in the environment, wind, before it even humidity gets to your nose. And then there's all the physical factors as well to like try and predict perception, etc. So it's a lot of numbers. It's a lot of different factors. So because computation is now advancing, there's a company, Osmo, that kind of branched out of a project from Google that's leveraging AI to kind of break this barrier. And it's like digitizing scent is kind of what it is. So that, I could send a smell or receive a smell, or it's going to be used a lot in all sorts of different industries where like there's dangerous things like natural gases or leaks and things like that. They have certain amount of technologies now, but they're pretty rudimentary, so it'll really change that. I don't know. I
And
think
so
about it a lot.
effectively you would say like, okay, I'm creating this scent. This scent is Weatherford, Texas on July 2nd at 4 p.m. And you nail in, let's say, the code, and you would be able to send that exact scent to somebody to experience
Kind of,
for them to
yeah.
recreate if they
Okay.
had, the same technology after the fact.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like a printer for scent is like one area, one way it could go down. The other thing is like, um, even just measuring a scent is completely,
Not a thing.
it's a thing.
Oh,
there's different ways to do it, but they're so variable. So there's like a photoionization detection, and that so it will take what's called headspace. So if you're smelling something, the headspace is the material, like all the air above the material. That's what holds the odor. It's not the juice, but it's like the actual scent is in the air. It needs to be in the air. So their photoionization detection will ionize the chemicals that are in the headspace, and you'll get a graph with like different lines, and each peak is kind of a signature for a different chemical. The problem is not every chemical ionizes, so that doesn't work. There's GCMS, gas chromatography mass spectrometry, and that does it with light, but it's the same kind of measuring thing where you're measuring the headspace. It'll suck it in, it'll do this measurement, and you'll get a graph with different peaks. You'll then like translate that to a list, and it'll be like 20% this chemical, 0.1% this chemical, and a whole list. The thing there is not every chemical actually contributes to the smell. And then as materials get into the air, they oxidize. So there'll be materials there that are part of that reaction, and not necessarily the like composition of the juice. So if you were like trying to recreate perfume, it wouldn't be the perfume recipe exactly.
Interesting.
And if you're trying to like archive artwork or preserve it that's scent based, do you write down the recipe? Do you measure the airspace? Do you like, there's all different ways to do it. And chemists have one word for one thing. Perfumers will have a different.
And it's new too. Yeah, that makes sense. It's all.
It's just like, and even in chemistry, there's like two different numbers that are referring to a chemical, and it's like purity is a thing. Like not everything is like isolated in purity, and if there's like a little bit of something, it can completely change it. So it's just so variable, and like there's like what's called the big six, which is like the big houses that which sounds so nefarious.
Right. It's either we need to fight them or like they're cool.
Somewhere between the two, I think. Like in the middle. Basically, they provide most of the scent materials to the world, but they also have all the perfumers. So if you're like a brand and you want to have a perfume, you would go to one of the big six, and a perfumer would make it. If you make a cleaning product with scent in it, you go to one of the big six. They also use AI to discover molecules all the time, and then will kind of copyright them under a proprietary name. So there's like a whole third name for a thing.
So we don't know if we like that, because do they control it so that they can't make it available to other artists? You don't have to talk bad about them if they're in your world, but in my head, my immediately was like, there's that artist, I think it's like Anush Kapoor, who's like in a war with Stuart Semple, and they create pigments.
Over the black.
Yeah. And apparently Stuart Semple,
I literally have Stuart just black is black.
Dude, he literally actually just changed his legal name to the other guy's name, so that he's like, well, now am I allowed to?
Oh, that's a whole new level I didn't know about. Oh, that's good.
It just happened recently. But like, you find you only have these 6 houses, if they're developing these scents because they are the only people who have them, doesn't that give it a little bit of a monopoly feel where they're not
Kind
giving
of.
the access? And scent should kind of be something that is available to everybody, considering that we all have
Yeah.
noses.
It's tough. Okay, so they do make it accessible for a price, right? You're paying them, they make money. We are in a
Right.
late capitalist society, so I understand why
Fair.
they operate the way they do. Also, with perfumery, copyright's crazy. Perfume compositions can't be copywritten. They cannot.
Oh.
There is no protections for the perfumers.
So if somebody figures it out and wants to recreate it and be like Dior 2,
yeah,
send it.
Yeah.
All right.
You can like copyright and protect like the bottle and the name, things like that, but you cannot protect the recipe. Which causes a lot of drama for perfumers working in the industry, but it's also part of why those companies do that, is because they can copyright a newly found or newly synthesized molecule. Those things like will expire. I think it's only a couple of years that it exists that way, where like only they can sell it under this name. But you can also do a little bit of research and find out what the actual chemical is, and then there's other companies you can buy chemicals from. It's like tough because perfumery is based on chemistry, right? Like even naturals, it's all chemicals, right? Sorry, my brain did the thing where it's just like, oh yeah, the whole naturals and synthetics.
Like the cell, my brain does the same thing. It's like I edit as I speak, where I'm like, no, too technical. Roll that back. Okay, we're going here now. Don't
exactly that.
Yes.
Yeah. So everything's a composition of chemicals. Absolutely everything in this world, right? There's companies that supply chemicals to laboratories and scientists. And then there's companies that supply materials to perfumers. They're completely separate, which causes some of this complication in names and things like that. But perfumery materials are far more accessible and regulated, so easier to be accessible than chemicals that can have bigger reactions, and you need more formal knowledge to handle them, etc.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so it's like a little bit proprietary, but I also can like understand why, and they do a great job of making it accessible.
So it's not like they're evil overlords who are like, no, we have created and we get to keep for our ourselves.
I think it's pretty much just like a product of like the industry and the way the legal system works. Unfortunately, that makes them do, like, they have to make money, so they're doing what they can to make money, you know?
Yeah, that's fair.
We're like, yes, I can easily vilify that, but also I get it.
Yeah. Now, question, when let's say you use their scents to create your own scent, you can't copyright, but you can sell the product.
Totally.
Do you buy, like in film photography world, it would be like a media buyout. So it's like when I shoot a gallery for a movie, they have to purchase the media buyout, but then they can do whatever they want. And they can make profit off my photos. I don't see a dime. It's just how it is. Is that kind of how it is with them, where it's like if you design a perfume, you don't have to give him dividends based off of what you made because they used your you use their chemicals.
You're using theirs. No, if you were a perfumer working in that house, they own everything. You do. You're like basically, you're for hire, like any company. Yeah. But I don't buy from just one supplier. I buy from many, I mean. And yeah, once you have it, it's like a paint, right? You don't have to like, if you make a painting, you don't have to like list off where you got the paint. Yeah.
That's so fascinating to think of paint and scent as like two very different, but I mean, hey, I've literally,
analogy works.
I've literally only now in the past 6 months have gotten into layering perfume and scents.
Controversial.
And also, but like, it's funny because it's not even, I'm like, at first I was just full sending it only on the neck, but I'm like, okay, when you shake somebody's hand, they get a whiff because the wind is most likely in the movement. So that's first impression. Yeah. And I was like, that's first impression. So let's make that less strong. Okay, we're going to do this one over here. And then we're going to do one over here. and then we're going to do one over the back hair area.
Hair.
So if you hug somebody, that
but
they
also
get a
it
nice
lasts longer if you put it with hair.
Okay,
Yeah.
I thought. Yeah, see, right? Yeah. I'm getting all my facts in line. Let's go. I can't smell right now, but I can learn about it. Let's go.
Just right now, but others can smell you. I will point out, layering is pretty controversial to perfumers.
Because they want their thing to be on their own. They made it full body.
Yeah, right. Where like they've composed it a certain way, and as soon as like other materials start mixing with it, it can completely change it. Right. So like one perfume might smell amazing on its own. You add something else, and suddenly it's sewage. Right. So, it's just risky business, but like
I never thought about it. It's literally just like me handing over a photo and them doing edits on it, and you're like, bro, that's not the thing I made.
Like, do you not like art?
Yeah. Okay, I can see that.
I will say though that there are, because it's becoming a trend, there are a lot of companies that are making perfumes designed to be layered, right? So they're a lot simpler in composition, meaning that there's like less chance for things to react.
Crossover and all that. Fair enough. That is very fair. Well, we have way past the 30-minute mark, but that's because
gave me permission to gush about the thing I like, so I'm gonna do it.
Yes, let's go. Learn so much. See, this is why we do this podcast, y'all, because these are all the questions that you don't even know to ask. And like, raise your hand in the comments if you freaking knew that we only figured it out in 1991, because that sure as hell was not me. That's insane.
It's also
to me.
sad. I'll like discover something and people will be like, oh, how long have you known that? And it's like 6 months. I've only I work in this field, just learned it. There's like so much like that. Yeah.
Well, thank you for jumping on. You are so amazing, and it is such an amazing, beautiful combination of all your talents and skills, and they are plentiful, and I will put all of your work in the links below, so please check them out. It is amazing. Also, do you have any current exhibits or anything anywhere, anything in the works?
Yeah, I'm co-curating my first show. It's going to be an olfactory art retrospective at the New Bedford Museum of Art in the fall of 2025. Beautiful. That's like the big project right now. I have some like other collaborations doing more like odor organ in concert with musicians that I'm like tinkering, but nothing's set in stone yet. And I just wanted to.
Where can people follow on your journey? Where can people kind of keep tabs on you?
I'm most active on Instagram. That's where I put things. I have a newsletter that I try to like announce when things are going on. I also want to say that like I obviously am very excited about these things. So you let me like word vomit about it for a while, but there's still so much, right? And this community that I am in, this like kind of niche, is pretty small, and I'm like here because people have been so generous with information. So I always like to pass that forward, right? So if anyone listening has any questions, please reach out to me. I will gush about it anytime. And if anyone's interested in practicing scent, like follow that curiosity. It seems intimidating, but it's doable. And
exciting and cool and just really fun and creative, but not in a way that people anticipate in being creative. And I think that's what on my bingo card of creativity jobs, this is definitely was not on it. And it is so phenomenal that you found your way here, because I think you are amazing at it. And I love you. Don't say that to all my guests, but it's fine. We'll end it there. But thank you so much for joining, and you are the best. And I will text you very shortly.
Thank you. I love you.
Thank you, and good night.
Goodbye.